Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope you're having a good day. As always, my name is Michael. Thanks for joining me. So today I've got an interview with a fellow YouTuber, Andrei from 1 Minute Economics, and we had about an hour-long discussion about all things personal finance, all things economy, and it really just was a pleasure to have him on, and there's a lot of stuff you can learn by listening to our conversation. So we get into things like preparing for the future, making money online, should you start your own YouTube channel, how to be financially resilient, and so much more. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I know it's a long one, but there's a lot of great information out there, and I hope you guys enjoy this. First off, I do want to make sure I got this right. It's Andrei, correct?
Russian mobster accent, Andrei, like that.
Andrei, okay, not Dmitry.
Like the guy you call to break someone's legs, like, oh,
okay,
let's just call
Andrei. Got a problem. All right, well, I'll keep your phone number down or the email contact down, so if I ever need a guy's legs broken, that's good. So first off, we know each other through YouTube and a website where we kind of talk about YouTube growth and all this other stuff, but a lot of my members may not have come across your channel. So can you give me like a brief recap of what it is that your channel focuses on so others can kind of know what it is that you do?
Yeah, well, I basically started my channel on the belief that people need to know their basic economics. So that's one. And two, there's also the fact that, people are bombarded with information each and every day. And I didn't want myself in the channel to be something that adds to that noise. Mm-hmm. So basically my value proposition to people is this. I mean, give me a minute, literally sometimes, of your time, and I'm going to teach you basic economics and even advanced stuff. Just give me a minute of your time, and I'm going to do my best on the channel to give you pretty much the best bang for your time, not for your buck, that I possibly can. And basically, the channel started out with me publishing 1 minute animations once a month. Then people said, okay, these are good, I like them. Why don't you publish something about the banking system or whatever? This led me to, publishing more content, then also to filming myself. And nowadays, as of last week, actually, I'm publishing content 4 times a week.
Oh, wow. That's a busy schedule.
Which is ridiculous, because this is a project I started as a hobby. I knew the money wouldn't be spectacular. I didn't do it for the money. I basically just went with it. I wanted to see what happened, and people kind of embraced it. People accepted it, and it works. I have students contacting me. I have people who remember how boring their economics class used to be, and they tell me, oh my God, I gave you a minute of my time, and you explained stuff that I didn't understand after an hour-long lecture, partly because I fell asleep.
Well, it's kind of cool because sometimes if you had students like me who I don't like authority necessarily, so whether it's a teacher or a boss, or something like that, I'd much rather learn something from someone like you who, it's my choice to learn what you're teaching. And I really think it's cool that you teach what you teach, because I don't know if you feel like how I feel, where YouTube is full of stupid cat videos and things that are just dumb and pointless, yet there's people like you that really try to educate someone and make someone think.
I mean, that's kind of my goal with the channel, making people think, talking to people like I would talk to a friend. I'm not this arrogant university professor who thinks he knows it all and who just basically regurgitates stuff that he learned out of textbooks. So on my channel, I try to make it the place where Keynesians can exchange opinions with Austrians without attempting to kill each other. And basically, I want to nurture the type of climate it takes to generate productive debates, to basically make people, be willing to get out of their comfort zones, be exposed to new ideas, and kind of treat everything with an open mind. I'm not the guy who knows everything. A lot of times on my video, I say, I have no idea. I don't know. Probably nobody knows. I'm not the guy I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not the guy you come to who wants to make predictions and whatnot. I'm just basically trying to give people a down-to-earth, informed, and realistic perspective on economics, and not, I just basically want to keep it civil, keep it friendly, keep it human, and it's kind of rare among economists, and I think that's part of the appeal of the concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And I comment every now and then on the videos where I feel like
Oh yeah.
maybe there's something I can share because a lot of your stuff, it's not that it goes over my head, but it's not my field. You can get in far deeper and talk about things that I just simply can't because I'm not educated enough. But you've always kept it really easy to understand for most people, me included. So again, hats off to you because I think you do a really, really good job.
I mean, the thing is, for a lot of stuff, for complicated stuff, I've done videos on fractional reserve banking.
Yeah.
It's something people should know. I mean, it's basically how the banking system works. You have to know that. It's something that affects you. Or I've done videos about derivatives. They caused, to a decent enough degree, the Great Recession of '07, '08. People need to know this stuff. But I've gotten to know that a minute is usually enough
Yeah.
to explain these types of things in a meaningful manner, in a relatable manner. You've noticed that on my channel, I stay away from definitions. I don't try to define. I try to explain, like
Concise.
exactly like when explaining derivatives. I'm not gonna say I don't like saying stuff that makes me feel smart. Partly because it's impossible, but also because it doesn't work. And with derivatives, I feel it's much easier to just give people, examples with the farmer who wants to insure his crop against a bad harvest, with things that are relatable, because at its core, the concept of derivatives, it's pretty straightforward. It's simple to understand. Fractional reserve banking is simple to understand as well. If you think about Mike, who deposits $1,000 at the bank, and then the bank keeps 10% and lends some money to John, who deposits his money at another bank, and so on. If you make it relatable, if you basically make the person who's watching the video kind of empathize with what's happening, and just and not treat it as some kind of an abstract mumbo jumbo thing that has nothing to do with real life. I think that's probably the key.
Yeah, and I really like a lot of your animations because it's visual learning, which for someone like me has far more effectiveness as opposed to just rote language, or I'm sorry, rote reading or lecturing or something like that. So it's a lot easier to understand when you have that format. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, kind of getting back into the subject of what I talk about, which is personal finance, one thing that I thought was really, really impressive that you do is, you said you started your YouTube channel hoping to educate people and not necessarily for the money. Well, a lot of people will start a YouTube channel hoping that it will lead to kind of economic growth, not economic, but personal growth for them. So, what all is it that you do? You've got your YouTube channel. I think you said, or I think I saw that you had an ebook as well. You had a website.
Yeah, well, I've been involved in lots of industries. I ran development services. I had a couple of hosting businesses, a small domain escrow platform, a small domain auction platform.
Wow.
I've written my own book, which is available in ebook, paper, audiobook form.
Wow.
I've done lots of stuff on the internet, and my pro tip for anyone who's thinking about starting YouTube for the money is don't, because there are better ways for sure to make money than YouTube. But I saw YouTube as a way to basically, give back on the one hand, grow as a person more so than financially, have a platform for my books as well, which helps for sure. But I think if you're not in it with your heart, if you're not kind of in it because you like to, it's going to come across in your videos. You're going to come across as inauthentic, and ultimately, I think people who are interested in making money on the internet, for them, in my opinion, there are better ways to do so.
So I was actually going to talk about this later on, but one of your more recent videos, you talk about opportunity cost, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it may have a high opportunity cost to be making YouTube videos expecting to become a multimillionaire, right? Whereas you could just start earning money doing something much more traditional.
I mean, yeah, for sure. It does help to write books, to make YouTube videos when you're doing so from a position of relative financial safety.
Mm-hmm.
If you're counting on your YouTube revenue or on book sales to pay the bills, then you have a problem, because you no longer have the creative freedom you need to do what you want when you want. You become a slave of, like, for example, on YouTube, you become a slave of clickbait, of views, of this entire charade, which in my opinion is ridiculous. Because on my channel, I think that, as a YouTuber, especially as someone in the education space, you're not here to tell people what they want to hear. You're here to tell people, to the best of your ability, what you think they should know. Like, for example, I have a lot of videos that are about topics that are relatively obscure. I know they're never going to have huge search volume. I know they're never going to go viral. It's not like people are going to hop off on Facebook and say, oh my God, I have seen the most awesome video about the labor force participation rate in the world. Oh, I have to share it with everyone's going to be watching it. Of course not. No, but at the same time, I think you should know what the labor force participation rate is, so that you don't just look at the unemployment rate when people are presenting data to you. So that's an example of something that I think people should know, but it's not the type of content that's lucrative to produce, so to speak.
Yeah, and that all makes sense. And you've kind of got this purist approach where I would much rather have an informed and educated mass rather than just an entertained mass,
Exactly. I mean, you said it yourself, with the funny videos on YouTube. I'm not knocking it by any means. It's entertainment. There's room for everyone under the sun, I think. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to become the traditional YouTuber who sets his hair on fire so he can get 3 million views and 500,000 subscribers. And then, that's fine. If people want to do it, that's fine. Maybe there's money in that. There's definitely more money.
Sadly, there probably is.
There's definitely more money in that compared to what you and I are doing, which is, providing meaningful education, kind of like, having a more niche approach rather than just going broad, going after the traffic, going in for the kill, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm not knocking it, but at the same time, I don't want to do it,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's why I've said it's good if you do this YouTube thing from a position of relative financial security, because then you don't care. You can do your thing,
I have hobby.
Exactly. This kind of creative freedom is something that I think is going to pay off in the long run, And I'm not a hypocrite. If you have to pay the bills, if I had to, maybe I'd set my hair on fire if I had to pay my bills, and if I didn't have a better idea, I'm not knocking it, but again, it's not my. It's just not my thing, I'd say.
No, and I respect that more than anything else. I used to joke around saying that I try to educate people on avoiding car loan debt, or if you have debt, get it at the lowest interest rate, and I'll show you how to do that. There's no money in that. I would have more subscribers, views, and money if I took a machine gun and shot up my car and then, did special effects on it, right? That would make me, more everything. But there's not a whole lot that I'm not making the world a better place when I try and do
exactly.
something like that.
It's basically. It's probably the same thing that you and I are chasing after, which is, a deeper sense of meaning, a sense that what you're doing is helping people. Like, I mean, come on, when I take my book and I hold it in my hands and I see that it's this huge 458, piece of good information that I'm proud of, that I think people are going to find useful, that basically is something that nobody else has thought about writing. Mm-hmm. It gives you a sense of meaning. Again, I have a new book coming up that's also going to be our 400-ish page book, and this is the type of stuff that it's about the deeper sense of meaning. Because in my first book, I talk about studies in the United States, but in other countries as well, especially developed countries, about the fact that after a certain point, the amount of extra money you make is no longer correlated with your net level of happiness. So, for example, I mean, come on, someone in the U.S. who makes $500,000 a year is not necessarily
10 times happier than someone that makes $50,000.
Exactly, but at the same time, if you don't make enough to have, again, relative financial security, then you're going to be burdened, then you're going to argue with your family about finances, and it's going to stress you out, and that's not good either. So that's the thing. It's fine after a certain level, after you've reached the point in which you say, okay, the bills are covered, I have food in my belly for the time being, it's all good. I think it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I can move on to the next best thing. Because in life, personally, I try to go after what I try not to just go after the stuff that gives me the most bang for my dollar, because again, up until it's bad economics. After a certain point, it's no longer worth it. Opportunity cost.
Yeah.
I'd much rather chase other opportunities, like having a deeper sense of meaning, like connecting with people, like feeling that I'm kind of making an impact in my niche, perhaps, and reaching lots and lots of people that I never thought I would be able to reach. I think there's more value in it for me than just trying to double my income.
Yeah, and it's like you said earlier, you can chase anything deeper and deeper and deeper, but eventually, the law of diminishing returns is going to go into effect, and it doesn't mean as much to you at that point. It's better to broaden the amount of usefulness and happiness and meaningfulness that you could provide both for yourself and someone else in life. And this is going in a different direction than I thought our conversation was going to go, but I really think it's cool because you are talking about a lot of the things that I may feel but don't address in a lot of my videos. I don't know how you feel when you make your videos, but a lot of the topics that I want to talk about are really things that make me angry, right, and frustrated because, as an economist, right, you can see where our actions, especially those in the West, are going to have insane detrimental ramifications for the entire world, let alone our lives in the future. Right? Our debt culture, our obsession with possession, our lack of connection with other people. Even though I talk about finances and you talk about economics, this stuff strangely does tie in together.
This stuff is ultimately, it's related to our lives. It's related. These are things that affect us. These are things that affect my family. And for example, for the main driving force which got me to write Wealth Management 2.0 in the first place has been the fact that it's basically the only personal finance book for people who make money online, from freelancers to entrepreneurs to Bitcoin investors and so on. And I've written it because over the years, I've been in touch with people from all sorts of industries related to making money online, smart people, brilliant people, people who are great technicians, people who are amazingly talented at designing stuff, really, really bright, smart individuals. But it struck me as weird and unfortunate that most of them didn't even have, some mediocrely basic level of financial education. And time again, I've heard stories about, yeah, I made a lot of money online doing this or that, but then I squandered it, then I spent it on stuff, then I bought a car to impress my friends instead of starting a new business or reinvesting in my existing business. And essentially, it kind of baffled me how these smart, brilliant, beautiful people are basically squandering their wealth because they don't follow a few simple principles. And it goes with what you said, we're so caught up in our bubbles and everything related to, day-to-day life, consumerism, all that good stuff. We're so deeply entrenched in it that we don't take a second to basically think about our financial future, about our finances, about this stuff. And I always tell people, if you have Bill and you have Joe, two identical people with identical family situations, with identical incomes, you may very well find out that 40 years from now, one of them is going to be financially secure with enough money to send his kids to college and so on, whereas the other guy may still be living paycheck to paycheck. And people, they're surprised and they ask themselves, what was the difference between these two people? Is it that one of them was a lot smarter? No. Is it that one of them made far, far, far better financial decisions, investment decisions with respect to specific assets compared to the other one? Not really, because a lot of times the fundamental difference between person one and person two is the fact that person two doesn't think about personal finance. Person two is the average individual who doesn't take a minute of his time to think about his finances, to think about investing, to think about his financial future. And this is what it ultimately boils down to, in my opinion. Not being this brilliant forecaster who, can double his money in 10 minutes on the stock market, but rather just being the type of person who thinks about the financial dimension of his life, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I'm stealing this from someone else. I think I saw it on Twitter one time, but the line essentially went, most of us work 40 hours a week trying to earn money, yet we don't even spend 1 hour a week learning to manage that money, you know?
Excellent. Yeah.
So one thing I do want to kind of go back to is, you said that you've had your hand in a whole lot of avenues of income generating resources from online. Do you think that that's something that most people should go into? Or is it, and maybe I should clarify that, or is it something that you should only go into it if there's something that you're passionate about and you want to educate others?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, people shouldn't get into this stuff because they see me doing it or because they see someone else doing it, because I'm very good at doing me, so to speak. I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever who keeps saying this. It's all a matter of developing the habit of doing you, of doing what you're good at, of doing the stuff that best, enables you to bring value to the world, so to speak. So, for example, okay, making money online. What does it mean? It means managing your own schedule. It means a lot of stuff, and this is where a lot of people end up failing, because you have all of the freedom in the world when you make money on the internet, when you don't have a boss to answer to and so on. But at the same time, you can spend the entire day watching funny videos and then wonder why you're not making any money,
Yeah.
which is what a lot of people do. So it all depends, is making money online something that's good for your personality type, for example? Like, I'm in this weird zone between an introvert and an extrovert, because on the one hand, I'm extroverted enough to be doing this with you right now and interacting with people and publishing stuff and replying to comments and all that. But at the same time, I'm introverted enough for me not to be affected by the fact that my occupation revolves around me working from home. A deeply extroverted person would go nuts doing that.
Yeah.
So is this thing something that's aligned with your personality? Is it something you're good at? Is it something you like? Or are you only doing it to chase after the money? These are the things you have to think about, because with a job, you at least have a bit of a blueprint. You're kind of like becoming a cog in a system, and a system that works, because otherwise the company would be bankrupt. So at least you have something. Whereas if you venture into this internet thing, you have to do so knowing what you're getting yourself into. It's not easy. It's not spectacular. I've always been the exact opposite of the gurus you see who say, "Oh my God, in 5 simple steps, I'm going to show you how to achieve financial." You're going to do what?
Yeah.
No, in one, just work hard for many years and be good at what you're doing, and then you're going to make money. And that's all I've got.
Yeah.
I don't have a magic formula, and people who are looking for magic formulas should probably do something else. Know what you're getting yourself into, because the stuff you're being sold by the people who label themselves as money-making gurus and so on, that's not an actual, and it's not an accurate depiction of what it means to make money online, not by a long shot.
Now, I am curious, because if you do say that, work hard forever and you'll naturally have money, that could go towards working hard online, or, intelligently setting up somewhat passive income revenue streams. So, looking back at however long you've been doing this, would you not say that you're proud and happy, and the opportunity, that the time that you've invested in creating all of these things have financially paid off for you? Has it been an intelligent move for you to make?
It has definitely been by far the most intelligent move a person from Eastern Europe like myself could have made, because again, it's not like people from poor countries, as was the case with myself. We don't have that many options. Whereas if you're someone, again, do whatever works best for you, because in the U.S., society does give you a better value proposition than what Eastern Europe gave me. So basically, in my case, it was a no-brainer, because I basically had to choose between making peanuts working a job in Eastern Europe, or using my brain, connecting it to the internet, and making a lot more money.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a no-brainer. But for a lot of people from the United States, it can be trickier because the United States gives you access to better paying jobs. It's kind of like a different equation for someone from the United States. So it all depends. For me, it has definitely proven to be a smart decision. It's primarily because I do what I love, but also people do have to keep in mind that I come from Eastern Europe, so it's not like I had much of a choice.
Okay, and that is good. I don't think I've addressed this on this interview yet, but to clarify for those who are watching, you're from Romania, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Romania, a country from Eastern Europe, which used to be under a totalitarian communist regime up until 1989, which is the year in which I was born. So again, nowadays we're in the European Union. I consider Romania a decent country, and whenever people are complaining about how bad it is in Romania, I keep reminding them that the average Romanian still has it better than 80% of the people in the world. If you take Africa, if you take Southeast Asia, and a lot of other regions, But especially when I was starting out, it wasn't that much of a difficult decision because obviously the income opportunities associated with the internet are far greater than anything Eastern Europe can offer you and could offer you back then. For someone from the United States, it can be trickier. Maybe getting a job is the best solution for you. But I always tell people, if you do get a job, get a job. If you want to do your own thing, do your own thing. But don't live someone else's life.
Yeah.
Don't live the life of the person you've seen on Hollywood and thinking, okay, I have to do what this guy does and I'm going to be successful. No, if you do what that guy does and it doesn't represent who you are, you're going to be miserable. So if you get a job that you like, get a job that you like, and you're going to be very happy. If you want to do what I do and that would make you happy, then go for it. But just for the love of God, live your own life.
Be intentional.
One word of advice.
Yeah, be intentional. Understand who you are, because if you keep trying to fake someone else's life, that's not going to lead you really anywhere, probably financially successful or, meaningfully successful.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's the point of it all if you're empty on the inside, so to speak? I mean, there's more to life than just having a card and having a place to live. These are nice things to have, but they don't define you. What you do defines you. What you do in this world, what your occupation is, it's not a way. It's not just a way to make money. It's something. It's one of the things that most deeply defines you.
Yeah.
So what does it say about your life if your occupation, if the thing you spend 8, 9, 10 hours each day on is something you hate?
Yeah. It's not going to lead anywhere you want to be.
Yeah.
Another question that I was looking at that I definitely wanted to ask you is, you, like I said earlier, delve into micro and macro economics as a topic far more than I do. But from a personal finance standpoint, are there any trends or global economic patterns that you see that you not relate to, but you can utilize in your own personal life to make smart financial moves?
A lot of my personal life revolves around preparing for the unexpected. And it's a strange thing for an economist to say, but I'm an economist who says strange things. I am perhaps one of the economists on YouTube who is the most, vocal about embracing his incompetence. Okay. Like, if you watch interviews with all sorts of economists on the internet, they're the smartest people in the world. There's nothing on this planet that they don't know. I'm the exact opposite. Not only do I not claim to have the answers and to have perfect predictions and so on, I actually make my incompetence and my limitations a fundamental part of my strategy. And my strategy, and I write about this a lot in my upcoming book, my strategy to a very large degree revolves around being more resilient. Mm-hmm. So we live in a world where we're dealing with a lot of unprecedented situations. It would be so hypocritical of me to say that I have any idea what's going to happen next. We live in this deeply interconnected world where, as you've said, people are taking on debilitating levels of debt. We're nowadays talking about Japan's, 250% debt to GDP ratio as if it's something normal. Yeah, it's just what, Japan. So we've grown so accustomed to the economically absurd that it does tend to numb our critical thinking abilities. Mm-hmm. And I think that the best play in terms of personal finance is trying to be resilient. I tell people all the time, I don't think it's the best idea in the world to try to come up with a strategy that enables you to thrive under all scenarios. It's impossible. Maybe we're going to have inflation. Maybe we're going to have deflation. Maybe we're going to have deflation followed by government intervention, and that's going to lead to inflation. You never know.
Yeah.
So the best play is not, aiming for the perfect strategy, but rather aiming for the type of resilience that enables you to land on your feet as close to no matter what as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like you said, you cannot forecast the future, but ideally you want to be in a position that no matter what happens, you are okay.
Exactly. I mean, look, we had what happened in Cyprus in 2013 as an example with the banking system basically being on the verge of total collapse with capital controls and all that stuff. So, again, in Cyprus, for example, capital controls were imposed. So people say, yeah, okay, invest in gold because gold is the best. Gold is good, but if you live in Cyprus and if you wanted to take a huge amount of gold out of the country, you might have dealt with problems at the border. Yeah. That's one example. So people say, yeah, but gold is the most portable asset in the world. No, it's not. You can, for example, invest in domain names, and all you have to do is remember your login details and you own them. So if you live in Cyprus and if you want to move to Germany, for example, you just hop on a plane and you don't even need a piece of paper to maintain possession of your domain names. All you have to do is remember a few login details and you're good to go. If you invest in cryptocurrencies, again, okay, if you have a physical wallet, an offline paper wallet, you might need a piece of paper with you. Nobody has such a great memory, but you might, I don't know. But it is hard, so you would need a piece of paper, but still it's easy to get past, totalitarian border control with just a piece of paper. It's manageable. Or if you use an online wallet, then again, just like with domain names, you only have to remember a few login details and you're good to go. So people tell me gold is the most portable asset. No, domains are more portable, Bitcoin is more portable, and so on. And so then these people say, okay, so I should invest everything I have in portable assets in Bitcoin and domains, which I say no, because what happens if you lose access to the internet? Wouldn't having some gold be a good idea then? Yeah. But I thought you hated gold. No, I love gold. So this is the type of thing people don't understand. You have to see things from multiple perspectives. This is what being resilient boils down to. If you lose your access to internet, it's good to have gold. If capital controls are imposed and you have to leave the country, it's better to have crypto or domain names or websites and so on. You don't know what's going to happen. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. So what I tell people to do is to think about the various things that can go wrong and to build a portfolio that helps them land on their feet. Yeah. It's simple. A lot of the things I'm saying, they're not rocket scientists. I'm not a quant. I'm not the type of person you saw, like, for example, the mathematicians, the geniuses over at AIG before the crisis, who talked on and on in interviews about how smart they are and about how they have the perfect economic models and so on and so forth. And then someone asked them, yeah, but what if a lot of people stop paying their mortgage? Oh, my model guy, come on. And this type of stuff is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that the simplest, the most basic economic decisions are enough to make or break your future.
Yeah. And now, one thing that you were talking about earlier, whether it's gold or rental properties or YouTube ad rates or affiliate marketing, whatever it may be, the entire idea is that you are trying to build something and grow. Maybe it's, one of 10 different ways of doing it, but the fact is you're trying to build something and you're not wasting your money purchasing something that, will not bring you any lasting happiness or provide you a whole lot of value. You're focused on growing your actual value, your net worth even.
Yeah, and again, this is something Pretty much nobody does, because we humans have this instant gratification monkey on our shoulders, and the instant gratification monkey doesn't want sustainable income sources, sustainable financial growth, and so on. It wants a fancy car. It
Yeah.
wants a brand new home cinema. It wants to impress friends. It wants all of this stuff. And this is one of the biggest mistakes people are making, that they don't think about sustainability. You want the latest iPhone, you want the iPhone X plus one, because the iPhone X is just not good enough, you have to upgrade. Or you want, it's the idea of chasing after kind of this consumerist dream that ultimately leads people to failure. Because who thinks about this stuff, right? Who thinks about how great it would be to have lots of passive income sources when you're old, and so that you can enjoy your life, so that maybe you can take a step back and stuff like that. No, most people are just like, yeah, I'm just going to rely on Social Security. I'm just going to rely on the current system, to which I tell them, do you think that's a good idea? Is the best idea in the world? Because just like the guy I've mentioned from AIG who gave the interview, I'm going to ask that person, okay, but what happens if the system, collapses because you're 30 now or 40? By the time you reach retirement age, a lot of stuff can happen. What if the system breaks? To which I get, this weird look. Have you been watching David Icke recently and stuff like that? People don't think about this stuff.
Yeah.
We're so spoiled by society. We're so spoiled by our lives as you and I, for example. We've lived in times of relative peace.
Mm-hmm.
We've lived in times of relative prosperity. Compare that to our great grandparents who had to go through maybe 2 world wars, and we're spoiled. Oh my God, we've been exposed our entire lives to systems that work.
Yeah.
It's hard for such people, even for myself at this point, but especially for people from Western countries. It's hard for them to accept the possibility that everything, the so-called system, can pretty much just fail.
Yeah. No, it's scary. And maybe going on a different tangent here. One thing that I've always found kind of interesting is, have you ever read the book Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have not read it yet. It's on my to-read list, and I've got it back there. But I've read some of it, and one thing that I really like is the idea that someone, let's say they've got $1 million, right? Just some arbitrary large amount of money. And you say, okay, well, they could go out, why don't they buy some Tesla? Why don't they buy some $100,000? They've got the money, therefore they can buy it. When in actuality, it's because they don't waste their money that they have $1 million. So that instant gratification, that needing to, in the West we call it keeping up with the Joneses. This whole idea of, I saw this on an advertisement and they're happy and that's what would make me happy. Okay, I'm just going to go into debt and buy this and forget planning for the future because I need this right now.
Yeah, I say this in my book as well. People are so obsessed with keeping up with the Joneses that they don't notice that the Joneses are broke. And the average person has a very hard time comprehending the fact that some people, a lot of millionaires next door, don't derive their happiness exclusively from material possessions. Like, for example, I embrace my personality, which is that of a cheap bastard. I'm never going to be the type of person who... I'm never going to be the type of person who feels comfortable in a luxury car, for example, because I can be in a luxury car, I can enjoy its features, I see how awesome it is, but it's not me. I feel like a fake there because it's not in line with the things I believe in, it's not in line with the personality that I have, whereas my car, which is, the regular European family car, you guys in the US call it a lawnmower, probably because you have huge engines over there and whatnot. But the car I have, it's a safe car. It's a reasonably big car by European standards. It gets its job done. It's the kind of car that represents me, and it's the kind of car which helps me derive happiness from my driving experience. And it's hard. It's hard for people to come to terms with that. So with the idea that especially someone like me who is known as a money guy, he's the guy who starts businesses, who writes about money, who's also an economist. What do you mean? Don't you want to have a fancy car? No, I'm good. I'll pass, And
Yeah.
people are shocked by this because everything in our lives, from the ads that are around us, from the commercials we see on TV, to the movies we see on Hollywood, everything around us tends to reinforce the idea that the only way to happiness is being a good consumer, buying more stuff.
Yeah.
Who cares if you do it on credit? It's fine, just you'll deal with it.
Yeah. It's 0% for the first 6 months, and who knows what it gets to after that. Now you've mentioned your book here a few times, and so I'm not sure if you would prefer to talk about the book that you've already written or the book that's coming up in the future, but give me a few bullet points of why people would be interested in picking up your book and what they can derive from it.
I always try to write books that I feel I'm meaningfully qualified to write. Like, for example, who would you get to write a book on personal finance for people who make money online? Well, ideally, you'd need an economist who makes money online himself, because otherwise, if I would have just written Wealth Management 2.0, my existing book, if I would have just written it from the perspective of an economist who sits in his ivory tower and looks down upon people, occasionally giving them a few nuggets of information, I would have come across as inauthentic, because my audience would have said, okay, but who are you? Who is this stranger? Whereas when you have a book that's written by somebody who's actually a part of this target audience, then the experience readers have is all of a sudden more authentic. Because in my book, in chapter 4, for example, I have an entire chapter where I talk about the most common mistakes people make, and I focus primarily on mistakes that people who make money online tend to be guilty of.
Okay.
Because I've seen so many stories. I've been in touch with so many people. I'm not just regurgitating stuff that I've read somewhere. I'm talking. I kind of give people a good combination between book smarts and street smarts, so to speak. So I think this is where this is pretty much where the value I give lies. And in my next book, I talk about a lot about resilience. And again, who better to talk about resilience than an economist who comes from my background, from Eastern Europe, who knows a thing or two about what happens when systems don't work. Mm-hmm. I think this puts me again in a credible and meaningfully, intellectually honest position to write about this stuff. Because all my life, I've strayed away from the idea of being an imposter. I always hated the idea of being a guru, of being a know-it-all. I always try to limit myself to topics I'm comfortable with, and topics that where I feel that I can relate with my audience. This is, I think, I do this on my channel as well, in my books as well, and I think it's this authenticity that makes my content stand out compared to the other stuff that people can find on the internet.
Yeah, it's genuine. You can see through and not have any suspicions that you're trying to sell off something. But kind of going back to what would be in your book, do you mind asking? And I don't want to be cliche and say give me your top 3 pieces of advice. But when it comes to just basic foundational personal finance skills, for, regardless if they're in their teen years and they're maybe just getting their first job and they're just being exposed to, okay, now I make money, how do I manage this? To someone who is 40 years old, they've got a family, their needs are going to be different, but a lot of the times the foundational pieces will stay constant throughout. So when it comes to personal finance, from an economist who prides themselves on resilience and being authentic, what are some just core pieces of advice that you would give to any individual regarding personal finances?
Well, I want to start with something that's deeply related to my personality, and I think a trait of somebody who genuinely wants to be resilient should be the ability, or not the ability, the willingness to question the status quo.
I like that.
Now I realize that I've been in a bit of a privileged position, because in Eastern Europe the status quo is an obvious scam. In the United States or in Germany or in a more developed country, the status quo is sometimes a more cleverly designed scam, which isn't as obvious. So I do understand that, but I think that one of your core principles should be the fact that you're willing to question the status quo. Because if you don't question the status quo, then why would you want to be resilient? If you have complete and blind faith in the system, then you have no reason to worry. We had this financial investment companies in the, I think it was the late 90s when I was still a kid in Romania, and they had these commercials on air which said, "Sleep well at night. We'll take care of your finances." And of course, they ran away with people's money and went bankrupt, and it was a scam. So I'd say people should not sleep well at night thinking that somebody has their back. I think people should have their own backs. And to do that, they need to become accustomed to questioning the status quo. So that would, I think, be a pillar of anyone's resilience strategy. And then another pillar I would say would be having, once again, the willingness, because it's all a matter of willingness, in my opinion, the willingness to embrace healthy habits. Because a lot of times it's not like you have to turn your life upside down. Obviously, the sooner you start, the better. But the bottom line is that you don't have to live your life for personal finance. You don't have to be a prepper. That's what I keep telling people. They shouldn't come to me for advice about how to be a hermit who lives in the woods. That's not my idea of resilience. My idea of resilience is a person who has a meaningful life, who has a meaningful family life, who is happy, who is healthy, who is well, but who is also looking after the financial dimension of his life. And I think that to do this, you simply have to embrace healthy habits. You have to, 1 minute economics, you have to occasionally take time out of your day to worry about your finances. Read a book here and there, make a smart decision here and there, invest in something here and there. It should by no means overwhelm you. It should by no means be your top priority. This is what it all boils down to. This is why I'm doing this entire 1 minute economics concept. It's baby steps. 1 minute here, 1 minute there, and before you know it, 30 years have passed, and that 1 minute and that 1 minute and that 1 minute, it all adds up, and it creates something. It creates something great.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to ask you if you have any more, but a couple of videos ago I talked about kind of investing, not necessarily what to invest in, and don't even worry what your rate of return will be. The idea is that as long as you are consistent, right? I don't care if you put this money under your mattress, in the stock market, in your bank account, as long as you're saying, you know what, I'm willing to just take these baby steps every month. Even if I put $100 in, compared to the average American, if you did that when you're 18 and by the time you're 30, you are going to have you'll be in the top 5% of the US just by putting $100 a month. So it doesn't matter what you're doing necessarily. You don't have to worry, is this the best option? Should I put it here? Should I put it there? As long as you're dedicated and you have that discipline to consistently do that, you will be okay.
I agree with this 100%. And it's all a matter of thinking about this stuff. It's all a matter of accumulating as opposed to consuming. But nobody does it because this is how we've been conditioned. This is what we've been taught in the school system. It's unfair to judge people on that, but at the same time, we do have to point out it's our job here as people who are in the education niche, in the financial education dimension of YouTube. It's our job to tell people that ignorance is not an excuse. Yeah. Nobody's going to care. I keep telling people that you have to prepare for financial calamities, for the big one. Probably within our lives, we're going to have the proverbial big one, a big reset situation, or something along those lines. And you have to be prepared, because it's not like the financial crisis is going to give you a courtesy call and ask, "Hey, I've been thinking about bringing down the financial system. Is that okay with your schedule, or should I come back?" Nobody's going to say that. Ignorance is not an excuse. Nobody's going to care that you didn't know. Nobody's going to care that you were too busy. Nobody's going to care that you lived in your own bubble and you much rather followed Kim Kardashian on Twitter. Nobody's going to care about that. It's not an excuse. I agree with you 100%. People need to start accumulating. And the best time to do it is now. Whether they're 18 or 40, it doesn't matter. It's just, accepting the fact that, what most people are doing is wrong. And even if, again, I agree with you with everything you said. Even if you're wrong, even if not all of your investments will pan out, and they won't.
Yeah, it's
But
unrealistic.
you're doing stuff. But you're doing stuff. You're accumulating. You're gonna buy a Bitcoin. You're gonna buy a domain. You're gonna buy some stocks. Some of them are gonna take off. Some of them are not gonna take off, and you're gonna lose money. But you've accumulated and you've diversified. And again, you're gonna be in the top 5% easily, most likely, just thanks to the fact that you've accumulated. Not because you're a brilliant investor, not because you're a fortune teller or a forecaster or a clairvoyant, but just because you've accumulated. It's so simple, but nobody does it.
Absolutely. And you've been talking about a lot of things that maybe these are topics for your channel, so I don't want to steal anything or spoil anything, and not to get too dark or doomsday-like, but if you look in the future between student loan bubbles, I'm sure our mortgage bubble's nice and healthy again, our credit card debt, 401ks that probably aren't full, and the fact that automation for a lot of jobs in the AI revolution could be really changing the way that we work and make money. As an economist, are you an optimist or are you a little bit of a pessimist or worried about the future?
Well, one of the fundamental things about myself and about my strategy is that I'm always a pessimist when planning. I'm an optimist in life, but when planning, I'm a pessimist. Like when I planned my wedding, for example, and I spoke to the guys with the decorations and so on and so forth, and they asked me, "Oh, are you excited about the wedding? What do you think?" To which I said, "It's going to be awful." and to this day, they still give me as an example of the kind of because I was like, "Yeah, it's going to be awful." I'm preparing for the worst, and even if it's the worst, I'm still going to enjoy my wedding. I'm still going to love my wife. I'm still going to be happy. I don't care. And obviously reality ended up being a lot better than my pessimistic strategy would imply. But I do believe it's healthy to have a certain dose of pessimism when you're planning. And speaking of what you've said, I mean, you're right. We're dealing with genuinely serious stuff. You had the dot-com bubble. What happened? You had Greenspan who lowered interest rates all the way down to 1%, which was huge for that time.
Yeah.
But then gradually they went up again to 4%, they went up again to 5%. And in the meantime, a real estate bubble was starting to be inflated, and then it popped, and then interest rates had to be brought down again. But bringing them down to 1% was no longer enough. You had to bring them down to zero, and even more so, you had to inject money into the system in the form of quantitative easing, of QE, up until the maximum of 85 billion per month. And here we are. This stuff happened in 07, 08, and here we are in 2017. And let me ask you, have interest rates gone back up?
Very marginally.
No, because in the United States, the Federal Reserve is basically making a huge victory out of an increase of 25 basis points. It's ridiculous.
Nothing.
In Europe and in the European Union with the ECB, it's even worse. Not only have rates not gone up, but they've gone negative. The same thing happens in Japan. So let me ask you, it's human nature, it's the business cycle. What's going to happen when we have our next downturn? Because the last time bringing rates down to 1% was no longer enough. You had to bring them down to zero or even negative and pump money into the system. Next time, you might have, probably the US will have to bring rates into negative territory as well and print even more money. And I've said earlier that eventually there's going to be a price to pay. But unlike most economists, I don't believe I'm able to predict just how much it can last. Like, for example, it's ultimately all a matter of confidence. Maybe after the next deflationary event, maybe after the next crisis, people are going to be, business as usual, let's lower rates, let's pump money into the system. And the market will say, yeah, I think I'll pass.
Yeah.
And then maybe currencies will go down, maybe a lot of stuff can happen. But then again, maybe the market will accept it and we're going to have another cycle and it's going to collapse next time. There's no way for me to know. It's also important to see the other side. Like you had people like Kyle Bass who have been predicting the demise of Japanese government bonds for ages, because if you listen to these people when they're giving interviews, it all makes sense. you have this country, Japan, which is so insanely indebted and has been for a long time, and it's so unorthodox with its fiscal and monetary policy that people have been predicting all along that Japanese government bonds will collapse. And naturally, what do? They shorted them. And you know what they call that trade? They call it the widowmaker.
The widowmaker.
It didn't exactly work out well for them.
Yeah.
Because one of the one of the important words of wisdom in investing is that the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. So eventually, all of these people will be proven right, because I agree with 100%. We are on an unsustainable path, and there's going to be a price to pay. The problem is that by the time this happens, if you keep making predictions and if you keep having the wrong type of strategy and mindset, you're going to be broke anyway.
Yeah.
So that's why, compared to other economists, I focus more on resilience, on being prepared in general for whatever life throws at you, than just, guys, it's time to prepare for deflation, or it's time to prepare for inflation, or it's time to prepare for war, or it's, I'd much rather see my subscribers or the people who read my books, I'd much rather see them as well-rounded and generally prepared individuals than just have them clinging to whichever scenario I think is more plausible.
Absolutely, because again, there is no crystal ball, but you want to be ready for whatever comes. And it sounds like you've done a lot of that spectacularly, and you've been doing this for years. This is not like some new development for you. It sounds like you're kind of maybe similar to me in the sense that I've been a grumpy old man ever since I was 12 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So I think about these things, and I try my hardest to be responsible, to make financially intelligent moves so I can have a good future. I deprive myself of immediate gratification to know that, well, I can enjoy a long-term stability. I don't need a peak here every 2 weeks buying something new and then hit a valley when I've got $30,000 worth of credit card debt. I'd rather say, you know what, I would rather just focus on the things that truly make me happy and don't have an extreme or exorbitant cost to them, and focus on those things in life, because those will pan out as having a far greater result in the long run.
I think there's value to that attitude, primarily because it's just so rare. It's how we met, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not something people tend to do. It's not the way the average person sees life, and I think there's value not necessarily in convincing people, but I think there's value in exposing them to this way of thinking. So this is something I try to do on my channel. I'm going to try to do it each week on Mondays with my rants, where I'm going to cover controversial topics, where I'm going to try to bring people outside of their comfort zones, not because I want to teach you something, I'm right, you're wrong, and you have to accept my reality, but rather because, have you ever thought about things this way? So like, going to the average consumer and saying, here's my perspective as somebody who sees things differently. I'm not asking you to embrace my reality, because I can never be 100% certain that I'm right, but I can be pretty much 100% certain that by exposing you to this way of thinking, you're going to be able to somehow derive value from that experience. You're not necessarily going to copy my strategy, but you're going to take something, meaningfully valuable from it, and that's going to enhance your life, and that's just perfect as far as I'm concerned. I always avoid being labeled as a guru or as somebody who wants his disciples to be mini-me's. I don't want that. I want to, basically just throw my experience out there to tell people, this is what my opinion is, these are the facts, this is my opinion. I may not be right, but I think there's value in listening to me, even if only for a minute.
Absolutely. And I think we're somewhat coming to a close here. So for any of my viewers, and granted I don't have as many as you do, but for any of my viewers that would be interested in your channel and your book, where can we reach you? How can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube by heading over to youtube.com/1minuteeconomics. I currently publish videos on Monday, my rant videos, the regular animations on Tuesday, the news videos where I cover the weekly news from an economic perspective on Thursdays, and the question and answer videos where I pick a topic each week and people ask me questions on Saturdays. So you can find me on YouTube. You can check out the About section on YouTube if you want to reach me through email.
Okay.
You can also comment. I try to reply to most or all of the comments I receive on YouTube, and you can also find me by visiting wealthmanagement2.com, which is the official website of the book. It has a contact section as well. Again, you can reach me. You can send me a message. I try to reply to all emails. And basically, if there's something you guys would like to know, if you want to ask me a question, feel free to shoot me an email. And I'm the type of person, again, the right balance between an introvert and an extrovert. I like to keep in touch with people. I want to learn from people. I want to help people. I want to reply. I want to interact with people. And, if there's something I can be of help with, reach out. I'm always around.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I will make sure that I've got your channel link down below. I'll make sure I have a link to your book as well as for those that are interested. But Andrei, let me just say again that I appreciate you being on here and taking the time to do this, okay?
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks a lot for being among the first who supported the channel. You've been a friend of the channel, I think, since I had maybe not even 100 subscribers. So you've always been there. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching us. And let's keep in touch.
All right, guys. Well, if you made it this far, first off, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, thank you, Andrei, for joining me on this. But take care. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Hey guys, thanks again for watching this video. I hope you learned something new from it and you were able to strengthen your financial position. I'm going to keep coming out with more videos, so please stay tuned. But go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, and have a good day.